Hello, my name is Hakon and welcome back to my channel. And if you are watching this, there is a certain possibility that you and I have a few things in common. First of all, we both use DaVinci Resolve, but we use the free version. And secondly, we find FusionFX a little bit confusing or intimidating. Thirdly, we don't necessarily know much about how to use LUTs in our videos. And last, but most importantly, we still want to create a cool, old-school film effect like this. And it isn't actually too hard to do in DaVinci Resolve, the free version. And in this video, I will show you how to do it. So, let's get started.
Right, so here we are in DaVinci Resolve, the free version, and I want to make this clip you can see here, which is the intro to this video that you've just seen. I want to make it into the old film look. The first thing I want to do is to create an adjustment clip, and you find that under Effects Library, Toolbox, Effects, Adjustment Clip. And I'm going to drag that over to my timeline and stretch it out over the clip. The reason I'm using an adjustment clip, there are several good reasons that I know. There may be more that I don't. I'm still a beginner at this. One of the great things is you can easily switch it off, and so you can work more easily on the other things that are going on your timeline, because the effects that we will add to the adjustment clip are using a lot of processing, and it prevents DaVinci from playing back your video at the full frame rate, at least on the free version. So let's start. Before we add anything to the adjustment clip, I usually crop, actually. Start with a bit of cropping, because you want a more constrained crop, and you also want that border to show that it's more of an old film look. Now, this is where you can also create a better aspect ratio for a realistic old film, so a more square aspect ratio. I don't usually do that. I like keeping it more widescreen, but that's entirely up to you what you want to do with it. Now, the trick here is to use the softness slider on your cropping. So you crop, but you also add softness. So if I add around 50 softness, and I see I need to crop a bit more at the bottom and the top, and also I want left and right to be the same, so maybe reduce this one like so. Top and bottom doesn't have to be the same. I like having a little more at the bottom than the top. It actually creates a better balanced view. Now, this is one thing that's important to keep in mind when you're doing your filming as well, that you make sure you have enough room around your footage to accommodate the crop. And of course, with the old film look, you are also going to blur the picture a bit, so you can safely move your camera further away and zoom in a bit in editing as well. So that's the first thing we do. The next thing we do is we want to add our main bread and butter film effect, and that is under Open Effects. And I'm going to scroll down here to under Resolve FX Texture, and it says Film Damage. So I'm going to add that to our adjustment clip, and immediately you see that something happened here. It got more blurry and it got warmer, and this is part of the effect. Or two aspects of the effect. So I'm just going to go in here. We're here on the inspector now, and it says video, so this is the wrong tab. We need to go to the Open Effects tab, and here we get film damage and all of its parameters. So film blur, of course, you can see that's there. I don't want to make it too blurry. Maybe something like that. And of course, now I'm looking at the still. The thing is, when you see when you have several images in a row, it actually looks less blurry than it does in the still. So if it looks a little bit, so you make it as blurry as you want it, and you make it a little bit blurrier when you're looking at a still, and that is correct. Temperature shift, I think that is probably fine. I'll make it a little bit warmer, actually. I am going to desaturate it a bit afterwards as well. and that's looking fine. Vignetting, I'm going to add a little bit. So this comes on top of the cropping already, so the corners get darker. Dirt, I can't see any dirt here now. Let's just play this now. And you can see the damage stripe, but you can't see any dirt. So I want bigger dirt. Let's see. Dirt density, that's maybe a bit much. Maybe somewhere around there, maybe a little bit bigger. When it comes to dirt blur, you don't want it blurred too much. If you have blurred dirt, it looks a bit like it's... you can use, of course, several layers of these effects too. If you blur the dirt, it looks like it is from the... almost like it was on a camera when you were filming, which doesn't quite look right. But if you think of the dirt as being on the film stock, when you project it, the dirt should be sharper than the film. So I want to make this a little bit blurred, but still sharper than the actual footage. So that is about right, I think. That's maybe a bit much, so I'm going to reduce that a little bit. Maybe the size too. Maybe 5 is all right there. And then the dirt seed is just a random seed for the generation of the dirt. So that doesn't really matter what that is set to. Let's see, that looks all right now. I want to save it again. I want to save regularly now because it does actually crash quite easily once you start using these processor heavy effects. At least I find it crashes more easily when you do that than other things. Scratch, we already have a scratch here. You can see here it's quite subtle, and it is moving. I do think the first scratch that you get by default is quite all right. I don't need to do much to it, but I want to add a second scratch. So I'm going to put enable on second scratch and enable on moving scratch. Maybe move that a little bit further this way. Actually, move it to the other side. Make it slightly wider, a bit weaker, a bit blurrier, and then move it around a bit more like so. Let's see how that looks. Okay, maybe reduce the strength a little bit as well. Okay, I think that will be okay. With all these parameters, you just need to, well, you don't need to, but it's a good idea just to play around with them a bit and just see what happens. You can add up to 5 scratches with this effect, but I usually think 2 is fine. And of course, if you want more than 5, you can add multiple instances of an effect as well. Now, the next thing I like adding is a bit of camera shake. Let's just see what that looks like right away. You can see it is moving around quite a bit. And of course, because of these effects now, the live view here will be a little bit delayed and it may not show the right effect. Let's just scroll down. So you've got film damage here on top, but if you scroll down, you get the next effect, which is camera shake. And I'll just double click on that. And maybe reduce the motion scale and the speed scale a bit. Let me do a bit of motion blur, see how that looks like. Okay, that's not too bad actually. Well, now it looks like a handheld camera, which is an interesting look. I like a kind of jittery kind of look to camera shake. So if I go down here and change the motion method from sine to square wave, it means it will be jumping rather than sort of sliding from one position to the next. So you can see that now it is sort of moving around a little bit more. Let's see, and I'll just... Yeah, that doesn't look too bad to me. Don't want it jumping around too much. Yeah, that looks better to me, so I'm going to keep it there for now. The thing is, because of the delay in the live view now, it's a little bit hard to judge the effects. So what I usually recommend would be to do this on a small clip first and then render it out and then see what the effect looks like, and then you can go back and adjust as needed. Now these are the sort of main things now. The other thing I want to do something about is the color. So if I go into the grading tab here on DaVinci, I want to desaturate this quite a bit. So I'll move down to the saturation and I'll reduce it to something like this, but I also wanted to make it look more sepia as well, or more sort of brownish colored. So what I can do is to move some of these grading adjustments towards orange. So I'm going to move the gain there, the gamma. I'm not sure which one of these has the best effect. Offset maybe. Okay, so a bit more. Something like that. So it's sort of sepia colored, but color as well at the same time. Just reduce the saturation a bit more, but I want to keep that sepia look. Something like that looks good to me. So that's not a realistic photo stock, really film stock, but I think it looks really nice because it still have that little bit of color in there. Another way you can do this, of course, is to add another video layer where you have a just a picture that is just a single color that you can then combine with the colors of your video to adjust the colors. That's one thing I also do sometimes. But I quite like the look of this. I think that is very close to what I want for this clip. And another thing that adds a bit of an interesting effect, because you want the frame rate to appear to be different, because now it is filmed at 30 frames per second. The old film was usually filmed at 16 to 18 frames per second, and of course in the old days with the hand cranking of film it would actually vary a bit as well. So I'm not going to make it too complex now. I'm going to do it quite simply, and there is an effect called stop motion. I'm going to drag that over here as well, and let's see. And it's not supposed to go black here now. Maybe it is about to crash, but what I'll do, the stop motion effect, it sort of adds sort of a jitteriness that is reminiscent of stop motion film, but also it actually on a live video it will give you a certain sort of effect that it can't really show you now because of the live timeline not being able to keep up, but it will make it appear to be a slower frame rate than 30. So I'm putting that to frame repeat to 4, I think is about right. So I'm going to save that again now because it has crashed quite a bit when I've done this in the past. So I am thinking I'm quite happy with how this looks now, but I am not happy with how it sounds, and that is because I wanted to sound old as well. So if I go into the sound tab now, let's see, I was adjusting some sound earlier here, that is irrelevant. So what I want, let's just play it now. About how to use LUTs. Okay, so that's a normal recording, but there is a free VST you can download from Isotope that is called Isotope Vinyl, that makes creating an old film sound very easy. And this VST is really meant to replicate old vinyl records. And there are a few things I like doing in this, so I want to switch it on now. I like putting it in mono because an old soundtrack from a film would not be in stereo, and of course I am recording stereo now. And the most worn sound is from setting this year knob to 1930, and then I add to taste a bit of wear, mechanical noise, electrical noise, dust. Of course, if you do this too much, it may sound more like a vinyl record, but if you do it right, it will sound like just an old recording generally. So let's play it now and see. Use LUTs in our videos. And last, but most importantly... That sounds quite good to me. I'm just going to add the gain a little bit on the output and reduce the input gain a bit. We still want to create a cool old
school
Or maybe the
film
other way.
effect.
Actually, I'm going to put the input gain up a bit and the output gain down a bit, so it so you get a little bit of that sort of valve amplifier clipping.
Like this. And it isn't actually too hard to...
Yeah, that sounds quite good. Okay, so I'm going to keep that. Maybe reduce it a little bit. Right, so there is one more thing I want to add now, and that is something you find under Open Effects, and quite far down there is something called Flicker Addition. And I'm going to drag that over to my adjustment clip and move down on my OpenFX Inspector tab over here and double click on that. And this adds that kind of flicker you get either with the varying brightness of a projector or with the varied exposure on the film. Both can cause this kind of effect. If I just play it now, you can see it. It's changing the exposure from frame to frame. Or not necessarily from frame to frame, but gradually over a certain time. So, I don't think I need to change much in the flicker parameters now. It looked quite good to me already, so I think I'm going to maybe reduce the speed a little bit. Otherwise, I think that was actually quite good. I'll just leave it there actually and see how that works out. So that is actually it. That's all I needed to show you in DaVinci Resolve, and yeah, that's how you do it.
Right, and that is one way you can do it. I hope you found this useful, inspirational, or whatever else. And if you did, please like, share, comment, subscribe, join me on Patreon, buy me a coffee on buymeacoffee.com, add my videos to public playlists, click on the adverts you see on my videos, or just watch my videos with a YouTube Premium membership, or if you do none of those things, that's fine too. Just watching my video now, you have added watch time and views to a video, and I can see that, and it inspires me to make more. So thank you very much, and I'll see you in my next one. Goodbye for now. Bye bye.